One child will never be enough. Her alien culture expects more from the human. Daniel sat in the quiet room, holding the tiny bundle in his arms. The newborn's skin was soft, a pale mix between his own human tone and the faint silver hue of her alien mother Liara's people. Her eyes were closed, her little hands gripping his finger with surprising strength. He could hear her soft breaths, feel her heartbeat against his chest. It should have been the happiest moment of his life. Liara sat beside him, her long, pearl-colored hair falling over her shoulders. She smiled, but Daniel noticed something in her expression. It was not just joy, it was tension. Her eyes kept glancing at the door, as if expecting someone to arrive at any moment. "Is everything all right?" Daniel asked in a low voice. She nodded quickly. "Yes, Daniel. Just hold her tight. They will be here soon." "They," he repeated. But before she could answer, a deep, echoing knock sounded on the door. The sound was not gentle, it was heavy, ceremonial. The door opened, and 3 tall figures stepped inside. They were dressed in silver ceremonial armor, each piece engraved with sharp, flowing alien patterns. Their faces were serious, eyes glowing faintly with an inner light. These were the elders, the highest authority of Lyra's clan. Daniel stood, unsure what to do. One of the elders, an older male with deep scars across his cheek, stepped forward. He looked at Daniel, then at the baby. His voice was calm, but heavy with command. "The first child is born," he said. "Good, very good." Daniel gave a small nod. "Yes, she's perfect." The elder's glowing eyes turned fully toward him. "One child will never be enough, human." The words felt like cold steel in Daniel's mind. He looked at Liara, but she lowered her gaze. Saying nothing, another elder, a tall female with a long silver braid, stepped closer. She spoke with a sharp tone. "According to the traditions of our people, you have fulfilled only the first step. Your union with Liara must produce many children, for the strength of the bloodline." Daniel blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. "Many. Wait. We just had her." The first elder raised a hand, silencing him. "This is not a choice, human. This is the duty you accepted when you took our daughter as your mate." Daniel felt heat rising in his chest. "I didn't agree to enough," the elder said, his voice cutting through the room. "Your duty to our people has only begun." Liara finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Please, not now. The child is only hours old." The third elder, who had been silent until now, stepped forward, his eyes locked on Daniel with a cold intensity. "Tradition is above personal comfort, above the weakness of emotion. We will return soon to discuss the next child." With that, the 3 elders turned and walked out. The heavy door closed with a deep, final sound. Silence filled the room again. Daniel turned to Liara, his voice low but sharp. "What was that? What did they mean?" "Next child." Lyra's hands trembled as she reached for the baby. She held their daughter close, her eyes shining with worry. "Daniel, in my culture, one child is only the beginning. Families are judged by how many children they produce. The more children, the stronger the clan." He stared at her. "So what? They expect us to just keep having more, whether we want to or not." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Yes, and if we refuse, they will see it as betrayal to the clan." Daniel's jaw tightened. "And what happens if we betray the clan?" Liara looked at him for a long moment. Her lips parted, but she didn't answer. She didn't need to. He could see the fear in her eyes. He could feel the weight of the silence between them. Somewhere deep inside, Daniel knew this was not just about tradition. This was power. This was control. And now, he and his newborn daughter were caught in it. He looked down at the baby. She yawned softly, completely unaware of the storm that was already gathering around her life. Daniel held her tighter, his mind already racing. Whatever these elders had planned, he would not let them take away the right to choose his family's future. But even as he thought it, he could feel Lyra's unease. She was hiding something. more, something worse. And Daniel had the sinking feeling that the next time the elders came, they would not just be asking, they would be demanding, and maybe they would not take no for an answer. Daniel didn't sleep that night. The image of the elders standing in his home, their glowing eyes fixed on him, kept replaying in his mind. Liara had fallen asleep holding their daughter, but even in her rest, her body was tense, her breathing uneven. He could tell she was afraid of something she hadn't yet said. When morning came, the sky over the alien city was painted in shades of deep gold and violet. Daniel stood by the window, watching the strange winged creatures glide between the tall spires. He felt like a stranger in a world that would never feel like his own. And now, after last night, it felt even more dangerous. A soft chime echoed from the door, not the heavy ceremonial knock of before. This was lighter, almost polite. Daniel opened it to find Lyra's cousin, a young alien male named Sarek, standing there with a basket of food. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "They asked me to bring you this," Sarek said, stepping inside. "It is for your strength, human. Males must be well fed before they begin the task of expanding the family." Daniel stiffened. Expanding the family? Already? Sarek's expression didn't change. "The elders wish for the second child to be conceived soon. They will arrange the ceremony in 2 weeks. Daniel felt his temper rise. "It's not a ceremony. It's my life. It's our choice." Sarek tilted his head. "Choice? In your world, perhaps. Here, it is an honor. Every child strengthens the bloodline. Do you not want your name to be remembered in the clan for generations? I want my family to be happy, not treated like breeding stock," Daniel said sharply. Sarek set the basket down and leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Be careful, human. Refusing the elders is not just insulting, it is dangerous. Some who refused have disappeared." Daniel's hands curled into fists, but Sarek stepped back, his smile returning. "Enjoy the meal, cousin. I will tell them you are preparing for the tradition." When the door closed, Daniel turned to Liara, who had been listening from the other room. Her eyes were filled with guilt. "I didn't want you to hear it this way," she whispered. "But it's true. They will not let this go. Then we have to find a way to stop them." He said, "I won't live like this, Liara, and I won't raise our daughter in a cage made of tradition." Liara's voice was trembling. "You don't understand, Daniel. This isn't just about us. If you refuse, they will strip me of my caste. I'll be cast out, and they might take our child. They believe she belongs to the clan, not to us." The words hit Daniel harder than any threat. The thought of losing his daughter sent a cold wave through his chest. "They'll have to go through me first," he said, his voice low. Liara stepped closer, placing her hand on his arm. "You're strong, but this isn't a fight of strength. It's a fight of law and tradition, and they have both on their side." Daniel looked down at her, searching her eyes. "Then we need to learn their laws. Every single one, if they want to trap us in tradition. Maybe we can trap them in their own rules." For the first time since the elders came, a small spark of hope lit in Lyra's eyes, but it was faint, fragile, as if she knew that hope in this place was dangerous to hold on to. Outside, the alien sun climbed higher, and somewhere in the distance, the great bells of the council tower rang. Daniel had a feeling those bells were counting down to the day they came for him again, and next time, there would be no polite smiles, only demands. Daniel spent the next 2 days pretending to go along with the council's expectations. But inside, every nerve was on edge. He walked through the alien markets with Liara and their baby, feeling the stares of strangers. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with silent judgment, and a few with open approval, as if he were already part of their ancient tradition of producing many children. It was strange. He had fought in dangerous places, back on Earth. He had been shot at, hunted, and yet nothing felt as suffocating as this quiet pressure. It was everywhere, in every polite smile, in every conversation that circled back to the future of the family. On the 3rd morning, the elders came again. This time they didn't enter the home. Instead, they summoned Daniel and Liara to the central hall. The building was enormous, built of smooth black stone that reflected the twin suns above. The air inside was cool and heavy. The walls were lined with carvings of families, alien parents surrounded by dozens of children, their faces carved in unyielding stone. The elders stood at the far end, with several members of the council seated behind them. Daniel noticed that the hall was not empty. Many citizens were present, watching silently. The eldest elder spoke first. "We are pleased with the first step, but time moves quickly. The second child must be prepared before the moons align again. This is our law." Daniel's voice stayed calm, but his hands were tight at his sides. "With respect, it's too soon. Liara just gave birth. She needs time to recover." A murmur went through the crowd, as if the word recover was strange or unnecessary. Another elder leaned forward. "Human bodies are different, but your role is not a burden. It is an honor. You must understand. The survival of our people depends on numbers. Without strong bloodlines, we weaken." Daniel glanced at Liara. She was silent, her head slightly bowed, but he caught the way her hand tightened on the edge of her cloak. She hated this as much as he did, but speaking against the council here would be like shouting into a storm. Then a younger council member stood, his tone sharper. "There is also the matter of loyalty. Some whisper that the human resists our traditions, that he questions our ways. That would be dangerous." Daniel felt the shift in the room. The eyes on him were no longer just curious. They were weighing him, testing him. The moment reminded him of a battlefield before the first shot was fired. He forced himself to meet the elder's gaze. "I don't question loyalty. I question being treated like a tool." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lyra's head snapped up in fear. The eldest elder's voice dropped, heavy and cold. "Be careful, human. Words like that can lead to consequences you cannot imagine." They ended the meeting without further discussion, but the warning hung in the air like smoke. On the walk home, Daniel noticed 2 armored guards following at a distance. When they reached their door, Liara finally spoke. "You shouldn't have said that. I'm not here to be silent." Daniel replied, "If they want a fight, they'll get one." But as he looked at his daughter sleeping in Lyra's arms, he knew this was no simple fight. It was a game of survival, and the enemy was not in a hurry. They would keep pressing, inch by inch, until he either broke or found a way to turn the game around, and he had just decided he wasn't going to break. The days that followed felt like living under a tightening rope. The visits became more frequent, not always from the elders themselves. Sometimes it was distant relatives, sometimes neighbors Daniel barely knew, all stopping by with the same polished smiles and the same not-so-subtle questions. "When will the second blessing arrive? The moons will align soon. You must be ready." It was never a conversation, always an expectation. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the skyline and the alien city was bathed in silver moonlight, Liara returned from the market looking pale. She set down the basket of food without a word. Daniel noticed her hands trembling. "What happened?" he asked. She hesitated, glancing toward the window before speaking. "They've announced it." "Announced what?" Daniel's voice sharpened. "The binding feast," she whispered. "It's the ceremony where the family declares the intent for the next child. The whole clan will be there. It's not a request, Daniel. It's an order." Daniel's jaw clenched. "So they're just going to announce our lives like we're livestock?" Liara looked down, guilt shadowing her face. "If we don't attend, they'll take it as rejection, and rejection is dangerous." That night, Daniel sat in silence while Liara fed their daughter. The soft sounds of the baby contrasted sharply with the storm building in his chest. He had promised himself to protect them both, but he was starting to realize protection meant more than standing in front of a threat. It meant dismantling the threat entirely. The day of the feast came faster than he expected. The hall was crowded, lit by hanging crystal orbs that shimmered like trapped starlight. Long tables overflowed with alien delicacies. and at the center stood the elders, dressed in their full ceremonial armor. As Daniel and Liara entered, the crowd parted, eyes followed them. Whispers passed like wind through tall grass. At the far end, the eldest elder lifted a goblet and spoke loudly. "Tonight, we honor the human who has strengthened our bloodline, and tonight, we bind the promise of the next life to come." Daniel felt every muscle in his body tense. He leaned toward Liara, whispering, "If I don't stop this now, there won't be a way back." Her eyes widened. "Daniel," but before she could finish, he stepped forward, the sound of his boots echoing through the silent hall. Every head turned, every conversation died. He stood before the elders, looking them in the eye. "You can hold your feast, you can tell your stories, but you don't get to decide my family. For me." A sharp murmur spread through the room, some shocked, some angry. The eldest elder's voice was calm, but filled with warning. "Careful, human, you stand at the edge of exile." Daniel didn't look away. "Maybe I do, but I'd rather stand there than be your obedient shadow." The hall erupted, not in applause, not in violence, but in a strange, heavy silence. Daniel could feel the balance shift, and he knew this was no longer about one child or two. This was about who truly had control. And for the first time, he realized the elders might fear losing that more than anything else. That night, after the binding feast ended in that strange, brittle silence, Daniel didn't return home right away. He walked the dark streets alone, letting the cold night air sharpen his thoughts. The alien city was different after sunset. The grand plazas empty, the tall spires casting long shadows like watchful sentinels. Somewhere in the distance, the low hum of patrolling guards drifted through the air. He knew now the elders wouldn't wait much longer. His public defiance had been a crack in their perfect wall of authority, and they would try to seal it quickly, or remove him entirely, if he was going to protect Liara and their child. He needed more than anger. He needed leverage. The idea came when he passed the old record hall, a quiet, half-forgotten building with carved doors and no guards at the entrance. He had seen it once during his early days here. Liara had mentioned that all laws and treaties, even those no one spoke of anymore, were kept inside. If there was a way to fight the tradition legally, the proof might be there. The next morning, he told Liara he was going to the market, but instead, he made his way to the record hall. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the faint scent of old parchment. A single elderly archivist sat behind a desk, his eyes narrowing at the sight of a human. "I need access to the oldest treaties between your people and the human colonies," Daniel said, keeping his voice steady. The archivist raised a brow. "Those are not requested often, and never by outsiders." Daniel leaned forward, lowering his tone. "Then this will be the first time, but I have the right. I am part of this clan by marriage, aren't I?" After a long pause, the archivist sighed and shuffled into the back room, returning with a thin, weathered scroll, sealed with an old wax emblem. Daniel carefully unrolled it, scanning the alien script and its human translations. His pulse quickened when he found it, a clause written generations ago, stating that any human entering the clan was bound by voluntary family agreements, no forced unions, no mandatory offspring. It was old, buried, and clearly forgotten, by choice, but it was there. Daniel's hands tightened on the scroll. This was it, the weapon he needed. He memorized the location of the passage, then rolled it back up. He couldn't take it, but he could bring the elders here at the right moment and make them face their own law. When he returned home, Liara was pacing, worry in her eyes. "Where were you?" The guards passed by twice. Daniel closed the door and met her gaze. "I found something, Liara, something that might end this." She shook her head. "You don't understand, Daniel. They won't just back down because of old words on paper." "Then I'll make them," he said, and his voice was calm. But underneath, there was steel. Liara looked at him for a long moment, and for the first time in days, there was no fear in her eyes, only a dangerous kind of hope. 3 days passed before Daniel made his move. He needed the right moment, a setting where the elders couldn't simply silence him without an audience. That chance came when a messenger arrived at their door, summoning both him and Lyara to a private discussion in the council tower. Lyara's hands trembled as she addressed their daughter. "Private discussion means they want to corner you," she whispered. "They'll use the law of silence. No witnesses. No protection." Daniel gave a small, reassuring smile. "Then we'll make sure it's not private." The council tower loomed above them like a spear of black stone piercing the twin suns. Its great doors opened into a chamber lit by a ring of blue fire along the walls. The elders were already waiting, their expressions carved from stone. "You defied our ceremony," the eldest elder began, his voice low but sharp. "You questioned our ways before the people. That cannot go unanswered." Daniel stepped forward, his voice calm. "Then answer me now, in front of them." He turned and gestured toward the wide doorway, and at his signal, several curious citizens began to file in: merchants, soldiers, even a few council aides. All eyes shifted between Daniel and the elders. "This is not a public matter," one elder snapped. "It is when you try to control a family," Daniel said, pulling a folded sheet from his pocket. He held it up so everyone could see the alien symbols alongside their human translations. "I visited the record hall. I read the treaties your own ancestors signed with the first human settlers. It says human members of the clan can only create a family by choice, not by force." A wave of whispers rippled through the crowd. The youngest elder's jaw tightened. "That law is ancient, forgotten, irrelevant." Daniel stepped closer, his voice rising. "Irrelevant, or inconvenient. You don't get to erase your own laws when they stop working in your favor." He turned to the people. "You think this is just about me, but what happens when they decide to bend another law, one that protects you?" The room shifted. Daniel could feel it. The crowd wasn't cheering, but they were listening. The oldest elder's eyes narrowed to thin slits. "You play a dangerous game, human." Daniel held his ground. "So do you, and the difference is, I'm not afraid to lose." For a long moment, the only sound was the crackle of the blue fire. The elders exchanged glances, and Daniel knew they were calculating, weighing whether crushing him now would make them look stronger or weaker. Finally, the eldest elder spoke, his tone cold but controlled. "We will review the matter." Daniel didn't smile. He simply nodded and took Lyra's hand. As they walked out past the murmuring crowd, he knew this wasn't over. But for the first time, the elders had stepped back, even if only by an inch, and in a battle like this, an inch could be the start of victory. A week passed in uneasy quiet. The guards stopped lingering outside their home, and no new demands came from the council. To most, it might have seemed like the storm had passed, but Daniel knew better. The silence was too perfect, too heavy, like the air before a lightning strike. It came one evening, just as the twin moons began to rise. A pounding at the door, not ceremonial, not polite, but urgent. When Daniel opened it, 2 armored guards stood there, flanking the eldest elder himself. His voice was calm, but there was something predatory in his eyes. "Come with me, human. Tonight, the council has reached a decision." Lyara clutched their daughter close. "Daniel," he gave her a small nod. "It's all right. Keep the door locked until I'm back." The council hall was lit brighter than he had ever seen. Every seat filled, not just with the elders, but with citizens from every part of the clan. This wasn't a closed meeting. It was a trial. The eldest elder stood, his voice echoing. "This council has debated the matter of tradition and law. We do not erase the past, but neither will we allow it to weaken the present." He paused, letting the tension swell. "We offer you a choice. Honor our tradition by providing the clan with more children, or renounce your place among us and leave alone." The word alone struck like a knife. They meant without Lyra, without his daughter. Daniel stepped forward, pulling something from under his cloak, not the treaty scroll, but a thin sheet of paper, covered in fresh signatures. He turned so all could see. This is a petition, signed by 50 members of your own clan, 50, who agree that a family should choose its own path. Murmurs swept the hall. The elders' eyes flickered between each other. The youngest elder hissed, "You've divided the people." "No," Daniel said firmly. "You did, when you tried to force the future on them." The eldest elder's gaze hardened, but Daniel could see it. The balance was gone, the absolute control they'd wielded for generations had cracked. If they pushed now, they risked turning even more of the clan against them. At last, the elder raised his hand for silence. "Very well, human. You and Liara will be free from the tradition. Your children will be yours alone. But know this, if you betray the trust of this clan, we will not protect you." Daniel met his eyes. "I never asked for your protection," when he stepped outside into the cool night. Liara was waiting. Their daughter was asleep in her arms. She searched his face. "It's over." He wrapped an arm around her, looking out at the alien city. "For us, yes. For them, I think it's just beginning." And somewhere deep inside, Daniel knew that in 1 week, he had done more than protect his family. He had planted the first seed of change in a culture that had never known the word no.